Okay, let's unpack this. You sent over a really remarkable collection of information. It's a deep dive into the professional and, well, personal lives of 10 comedy legends. We're talking Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Peter Sellers, Richard Pryor, Woody Allen, Robin Williams, Jacques Tati, Bill Murray, Jim Carrey, and Rowan Atkinson. What a list. Just wow.
It really is quite a lineup. And I think the goal here for you listening isn't just to, know the names. It's about getting a real feel for how they shaped comedy, right?
Yeah.
What made their styles unique, and maybe some surprising things about how their lives connected to their art.
Exactly. We want to pull out the key stuff from this this whole 360-degree view you put together,
Yeah.
give you a solid takeaway on their impact.
So we'll be digging into it all.
And it makes sense to start with their early lives, I think, because for so many of them, those first experiences, they seem to feed directly into the humor.
Oh, absolutely.
You take Chaplin. I mean, orphaned young, workhouses, starting work at 5 years old, that kind of Dickensian background,
Yeah.
it's almost impossible not to see that hardship somehow reflected in the tramp, that resilience, but also that little bit of sadness underneath.
There's definitely that touch of melancholy. But then contrast that with someone like Buster Keaton, it's fascinating.
Right. How so?
Well, his childhood was in poverty. It was performance, vaudeville, his family act, The Three Keatons. He was literally, and I mean literally, thrown around the stage from when he was tiny, learning acrobatics, learning how to fall, and how to do it with that completely deadpan face.
Wow. So that stone face started really early.
Yeah. Even the name Buster supposedly came from Houdini, seeing him take a fall down some stairs.
No kidding, Houdini.
That's the story. So you've got these two, completely different starting points shaping these incredible but very different comedic talents.
Talk about learning on the job, and then you see how that translates into their breakthroughs, the characters we all recognize instantly. Chaplin's little tramp,
Yeah.
the bowler hat, the cane, the baggy pants. That popped up almost right away when he joined Keystone Studios, didn't it?
Pretty much. It was like instant visual shorthand for comedy. Everyone got it.
But then look at Peter Sellers. His breakthrough wasn't really one character at first, was it? It was more about his sheer range.
Exactly. Think about the early 60s. You've got him playing Quaity in Lolita, which is unsettling. Then all those different roles in Dr. Strangelove,
Incredible.
showcasing that chameleon thing he did. And then Inspector Clouseau in The Pink Panther.
Please so.
And that bumbling detective, that character just took off, launched a whole series of films.
It's funny how different the paths are. Rowan Atkinson's Mr. Bean.
Yeah,
He didn't even show up until 1990.
right, much later.
But that character, almost totally silent, relying on those amazing facial expressions and physical comedy,
Yeah.
he became a global sensation too.
Yeah, it really proves the power of visual humor, doesn't it? Cuts across language barriers.
Absolutely. Which kind of brings us neatly to their styles, what actually made each of them distinct. The secret sauce, if you like.
Well, with Chaplin, you mentioned the pathos. It was that mix, wasn't it? Slapstick, sure, the physical stuff, but always with that undercurrent of, well, humanity, sadness, empathy maybe. The tramp's the underdog, facing tough breaks, but with a sort of cheeky spirit.
And moments of real kindness, too.
Exactly. He brought heart to screen comedy early on.
Whereas Keaton,
Yeah.
the great stone face,
Yeah.
he kind of went the other way, didn't he?
Totally. He swapped the obvious emotion for these unbelievably complex physical stunts and sight gags.
Yeah, the mechanics of his gags were amazing.
Right, and he's just this unflappable presence navigating chaos, never cracking a smile. He actually said something like, the more serious I was, the bigger the laugh.
That takes incredible discipline to commit to that deadpan persona through everything.
It really does. And then you jump forward and Richard Pryor bursts onto the scene. Talk about a shift.
Oh, yeah. Completely different energy.
It's this raw, intensely personal, brutally honest stand-up. He wasn't really hiding behind a character in the same way.
No filter.
Pretty much, drawing straight from his own life, race, relationships, addiction, everything. With a kind of vulnerability and fearlessness that just hadn't really been seen like that before.
Yeah.
He basically rewrote the rule book for stand-up.
He really did. And then for another flavor entirely, you've got Woody Allen.
Right, the neurotic intellectual.
Exactly. That self-deprecating New Yorker, always wrestling with big philosophical ideas. But often in these absurd, almost slapstick situations. Plus all the cultural references, the literary stuff, very specific territory he carved out.
Very distinctive. And if you think about energy levels, Robin Williams was almost the polar opposite of Allen, wasn't he?
Oh, completely. Just pure high-octane machine gun delivery.
That frenetic improvisation, the voices, the characters just pouring out of him.
Seemed endless.
But, and this is key, underneath all that mania, he could tap into really deep emotion, too. He had that famous quote, something like, "You're only given a little spark of madness, you mustn't lose it."
And he definitely didn't lose his spark.
No, he certainly embraced it.
Then there's someone like Jacques Tati, taking visual comedy somewhere else again.
Very different, yes. Minimal dialogue.
Right.
These incredibly detailed, almost choreographed sight gags, often in wide shots, so you have to kind of watch carefully.
Yeah, you have to scan the frame.
Exactly. The humor comes from observing behavior, how people interact, often awkwardly with the modern world. His character, Mr. Ulo, with the pipe and raincoat, he just sort of wanders through, creating this gentle chaos almost by accident.
It's a much quieter, more observational style.
Very much so, which contrasts again with, say, Bill Murray.
Ah, Murray, the king of dry wit.
That's it, that deadpan delivery. But it's different from Keaton's. It's more laconic, understated reactions to absurdity.
That sort of cool, detached vibe?
Yeah.
Like he's slightly amused by everything.
Yeah, that persona became incredibly influential.
And then Jim Carrey.
Sure.
Who kind of brought a whole different type of physicality back, didn't he?
Oh, big time. Like a human cartoon.
Totally. The rubber face, the body language, just bouncing off the walls.
Huge energy, very elastic expressions. He definitely tapped into a love for that really broad physical comedy for a whole new audience in the 90s.
Yeah, he was massive.
And finally, Rowan Atkinson, who's interesting because he kind of bridges things.
How do you mean?
Well, with Mr. Bean, he's masterful with the physical and visual stuff. Very little dialogue. You can see echoes of Tati, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
But then, think about Blackadder.
Oh, brilliant.
Completely different. All about sharp, witty dialogue, character acting, satire. Shows incredible range. He knows how much you can say with just a look, but he can also deliver killer lines.
It's amazing when you lay them all out like that.
Yeah.
Such different ways to be funny. And the influence they've had.
Oh,
It's huge.
undeniable. Chaplin's tramp. He became this global symbol, didn't he? The underdog, resilience.
Yeah.
Set the template for so much screen comedy.
For sure. And Keaton.
Keaton, with those incredible stunts and visual gags, he basically invented action comedy, in a way, pushing the boundaries of what you could do on film before sound. Roger Ebert called him the greatest of the silent clowns, highlighting his precision and bravery.
High praise. And Pryor's influence on stand-up. It's still massive today, isn't it?
Absolutely. He's like the benchmark. So many comedians point to him. That honesty, tackling taboo topics. He showed black-led comedy could be a major force.
Yeah, opened so many doors. Woody Allen.
Allen brought a different sensibility, maybe more literary, more personal, to film comedy. Mixing the funny with serious themes. Created a whole aesthetic, really, that's inspired filmmakers everywhere.
Right? And Robin Williams?
Well, the improv skills, the energy just raised the bar for live performance. But also huge success in family movies, showed incredible versatility, influenced performers across the board.
Such range.
Yeah.
Tati. His influence might be more subtle.
Maybe less mainstream in the US, but huge in cinema circles, especially in Europe. That meticulous visual storytelling. Anyone interested in comedy without words owes him a debt.
I can see that. Bill Murray.
Murray kind of redefined the cool movie comic, didn't he? Showed you could be hilarious with just a look, an understated line, influenced a whole generation in mixing comedy with, like, real emotional undertones.
Yeah, that deadpan coolness. Jim Carrey.
Carrey proved that massive, broad physical comedy could still be huge box office in the 90s. But he also showed that guys known for comedy could tackle serious drama, which was important.
Expanded the possibilities.
Yep. And Atkinson, finally.
Well, Mr. Bean brought that physical, almost timeless comedy back to a massive global audience.
Right. And Blackadder proved his mastery of sharp, satirical wordplay, covering both ends of the spectrum almost.
It's also striking, looking through this, how often their personal lives, their struggles, seem connected to their work.
Definitely. It's hard to separate sometimes. Chaplin's rough childhood. You see it woven into the tramp story, the themes of poverty, resilience, even his later, more political films.
Absolutely. And Keaton. Maybe his later career difficulties, losing creative control. Perhaps that fed into the stoicism, the perseverance his characters always showed.
It was possible. Sellers. His personal life was famously quite turbulent, wasn't it? Lots of anxiety. You sometimes feel that seeping into the complexity of the characters he played, maybe even Clouseau's fragile ego.
That makes sense. Pryor, of course, was incredibly open about it all.
Yeah, his battles with addiction, the trauma, that became his material. Groundbreaking, powerful stuff. He just put it out there.
Unflinchingly, Toddy. His struggles were different, right? More about the art.
Yeah, less inner turmoil maybe, but his commitment to his unique vision. It often cost him dearly financially. He bankrupted himself making playtime.
Wow. Sticking to his guns, though.
Right. Murray's quite private, but he's hinted at insecurities, career ups and downs. Maybe that informs that slightly sardonic edge he often has.
Could be. Carrey's been very open about depression.
He has. And you could argue that dealing with that has maybe added layers, vulnerability to some of his more recent dramatic performances.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
And Atkinson. More private, perhaps?
Seems so. He's faced some health issues, but they don't seem to directly show up in his comedy roles in the same obvious way as some of the others.
So, stepping back, what does all this mean for you, the listener? We've kind of journeyed through these 10 lives and careers.
Yeah, you've seen how Chaplin's tough start shaped The Tramp, how Keaton's childhood falls literally led to his stunts, how Pryor turned personal pain into revolutionary comedy.
And just think about the sheer variety. Silent masters like Chaplin and Keaton,
Mm-hmm.
then character chameleons like Sellers and Atkinson, boundary pushers like Pryor and Williams. Each one left such a distinct mark.
And don't forget Tati's meticulous visuals, Murray's dry cool, Allen's neurotic wordplay, Carrey's physical explosions. So many different ways to make people laugh and think.
And that recurring theme, personal experience, feeding the creative vision, the highs, the lows, it all seems to get funneled into the art, shaping their legacies. They weren't just joke machines.
Well, there are artists using comedy to reflect the world, often in insightful ways.
So here's something for you to chew on. Knowing a bit more now about their backgrounds, their approaches, does it change how you see their comedy at all?
Yeah, and maybe. Who out of these 10 makes you most curious? Makes you want to maybe watch an old film again or read a bit more about them?
Good question. And one last thought to leave you with. It's a pretty serious world out there, often feels overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it about laughter, the kind these 10 legends brought us? What gives it such enduring power? Why does it still connect so deeply across cultures, across time?
That's the big question, isn't it? Something to ponder.